I was sitting out on my porch last Tuesday, watching the sun start to dip behind the trees in our backyard in Knoxville when I tried to stand up to go check on the grill. It should have been the simplest thing in the world. I've done it thousands of times, but for a second my legs just didn't respond the way they used to. I felt this heavy, dull pull in my thighs, and my knees gave a little creak that sounded much louder in the quiet evening air than it probably was. I had to use the arm rests of that old wooden chair to hoist myself up, and I felt a hot flash of frustration wash over me. I spent over 30 years in a warehouse, moving pallets and climbing up and down metal stairs, and I never had to think about how to stand up. My body was just a machine that worked. But that evening, looking down at my legs, I realized they didn't look like the legs of the man who used to run that loading dock. They looked thinner. They looked tired. If you have ever felt that second of hesitation when you go to stand up, or if you've noticed that your steps feel a little less sure when you're walking on uneven grass, then you know exactly the kind of quiet worry I was feeling right then. What I didn't realize at the time was that I wasn't just getting older, I was experiencing something very specific that my daughter Megan finally put a name to for me. She's an occupational therapist, and she's seen it 1,000 times in the folks she helps. She sat me down at the kitchen table and told me that after we hit 60, our bodies start to undergo a silent decline in muscle mass. She showed me a piece of paper that said we can lose up to 3% of our leg strength every single year if we aren't actively doing something to stop it. When you do the math, that is terrifying. By the time you've been retired for 10 years, you could be 30% weaker than you were on your last day of work. It's like a slow leak in a tire. You don't notice it on a short trip to the store, but eventually you're driving on the rim and wondering why the ride feels so rough. I realized right then that if I didn't change something, I was going to lose my independence. I wasn't going to be the grandfather who could pick up his grandkids, or the husband who could take Linda out for a walk without needing to stop every 5 minutes. I decided I wasn't going to let that happen. I went on a bit of a mission to figure out how to feed my body what it actually needed to rebuild. I found 6 specific foods that change the way my legs feel every morning. Most people are eating them, but I found out that nearly everyone is eating the last one on my list the wrong way, and that is the one that really turned the lights back on for me. I want to walk you through all 6 of them today because I know I'm not the only one who has felt that wobble in their knees. I've talked to so many men my age at the hardware store or after church who are shuffling their feet because they've lost the confidence in their own balance. I want you to know that it doesn't have to be that way. I've seen this work for me, and I've seen it work for my neighbor Bill, who is 82 and still spends his Saturday mornings working in his garden. We aren't doctors, but we are men who have lived in these bodies for 7 decades. And we've learned what makes them run. The first thing I had to change was how I thought about energy. Back in the warehouse, I used to grab whatever was fast, usually a sandwich or something processed. But Linda started making me these baked sweet potatoes for lunch, and I noticed something almost immediately. I used to get this mid-afternoon crash where my legs felt like lead, but the sweet potatoes gave me a kind of long-lasting power I hadn't felt in years. Megan explained it to me in a way that made sense. She said that as we get older, our muscles don't store energy as well as they used to. It's like an old battery that drains too fast. Sweet potatoes are full of complex carbohydrates that burn slow, like a good oak log in a fireplace instead of a bunch of dry newspaper. They also have this orange color because they are packed with beta-carotene and vitamin A. I found out that vitamin A is what helps repair those tiny little tears we get in our muscles just from moving around. Since I started eating them 3 or 4 times a week, that soreness I used to feel in my calves after a long walk has mostly disappeared. They also have potassium, which I learned is the secret to keeping your muscles from cramping up. I don't wake up in the middle of the night with my leg locking up anymore, and that alone was worth the change. Then I had to look at my breakfast. I used to be a big fan of those sugary cereals or just a piece of white toast, but I switched over to a bowl of slow-cooked oats every morning. I'm a man of habit, so once I made the switch, it became part of my routine. I noticed that my legs had much more stamina during the day. If I have to go to the grocery store and carry the bags into the house, my legs don't start shaking halfway through the kitchen. Oats provide this steady fuel that keeps the blood sugar stable, which is a huge deal for us. When your blood sugar crashes, your muscles lose their coordination, and that is when you trip or lose your balance. I found out that oats are also a great source of magnesium. I used to think magnesium was just something for people who couldn't sleep, but it turns out your muscles need it to relax properly. If they can't relax, they stay tight and heavy, which makes every step feel like you're walking through deep mud. I've started adding a bit of cinnamon to mine, and I feel like I have the energy of a man 20 years younger when I'm out walking the dog in the morning. Now, I have to admit, I was a bit skeptical about the next one. Linda started buying avocados, and I used to think those were just for fancy restaurants. But I started eating half of one with my lunch, and the stiffness in my knees began to fade. I've lived with a dull ache in my joints since I was 50, but I learned that the healthy fats in avocados act like a natural lubricant for the body. They help calm down that chronic inflammation that wears us down. My son Derek, who runs an HVAC business and is always on his feet, started doing the same thing after he saw how much better I was moving. He told me he felt less tightness in his hips after a long day of climbing ladders. Avocados actually have more potassium than a banana, which was a shock to me. Keeping that potassium level up is what prevents those sudden spasms that make you feel like your leg is going to give out from under you. I've noticed that I can get in and out of the truck much easier now. I don't have to think about the movement, I just do it. I also started paying attention to the little things, literally. I've got a raspberry patch behind the shed, and I started eating a handful of berries every single day. Whether it's blueberries or raspberries, these things are like a shield for your muscles. I read that as we age, we deal with something called oxidative stress. It's like rust forming on the inside of your body. Berries have these antioxidants that fight that rust. It sounds a bit technical, but all I know is that my legs don't feel as tired. I used to come inside after working in the yard and feel like I needed a 2-hour nap just to recover. Now I feel like I bounce back much faster. They also have vitamin C, which helps the body make collagen. I always thought collagen was just for skin, but it turns out it's what keeps your tendons and joints firm and flexible. When your tendons are strong, your legs feel more stable on the ground. It's like having a better set of shocks on your car. You don't feel every bump in the road quite as much. The fifth food on my list is something I've always enjoyed, but I started making it a priority: salmon. Derek and I go fishing out on the lake sometimes, but I started buying the wild-caught stuff from the market too. I learned that your leg muscles need high-quality protein to stay firm, and salmon is the best source I've found. But the real magic is in the omega-3 fatty acids. These fats are incredible for circulation. If your blood isn't moving well down to your feet, your muscles are going to be weak. It's that simple. I've noticed that my feet don't feel as cold as they used to, and I don't get that pins and needles feeling as often. Salmon also has vitamin D, which is something most of us are low on. Without vitamin D, your body can't use the calcium you're eating, and your coordination starts to slip. I noticed that after a few weeks of eating salmon twice a week, I felt much steadier when I was walking on the gravel driveway. It's about having that pushing power in your legs to move with confidence. That brings me to the last one, and this is the one I think is the most important for anyone over 60. It's eggs. For years we were told to avoid them because of cholesterol, but I've found that they are the absolute best foundation for rebuilding muscle. I eat one or two every single morning. But here's the thing. Most people are eating them the wrong way. They either overcook them until they are rubbery, or they pair them with processed meats that are full of salt and chemicals that cause inflammation. I cook mine gently in a little olive oil, and I always pair them with some of those greens or sweet potatoes I talked about. Eggs have every single amino acid your muscles need. It's a complete package. They also have choline, which is a nutrient that helps your nerves talk to your muscles. If that communication is slow, your reactions are slow. I want to be able to react quickly if I trip over a rug or if one of my grandkids runs toward me. Eggs help keep those signals sharp. Since I made eggs a daily part of my life, my legs feel solid. I feel like I'm standing on a foundation of oak instead of straw. I know some people wonder if they have to eat all of these every day. I tell them no, you just have to be consistent. I mix and match them. Maybe it's oats and berries for breakfast and salmon with sweet potatoes for dinner. The key is to stop putting the cheap stuff in your body and start giving your muscles the raw materials they need to survive. I've seen men wait until they are using a walker to start thinking about this, and while it's never too late, it's so much easier if you start before the problem gets that bad. I want to be able to walk into my 80s and 90s with my head held high, and I know that starts with what I put on my plate today. People also ask me if they need to be lifting heavy weights in a gym to see results. I tell them I'm 73 years old. I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder, but I do believe in movement. I take my walks every morning and I do some simple stretches in the living room while I'm watching the news. The food is the fuel, but the movement is what tells your body to use that fuel to build muscle. When you combine the two, you're giving yourself a fighting chance. I've noticed that my balance is better than it was 10 years ago. I can stand on one leg to put my socks on without needing to lean against the wall. That might sound like a small thing to a younger person, but to a man my age, that is a victory. It's a sign that I'm still in control. I want to remind you that your body is still listening to you. It doesn't matter if you're 60, 70, or 90. Your muscles will still respond if you feed them correctly. I've seen the decline happen to friends of mine, and it's heartbreaking to see someone lose their mobility because they just stopped trying. I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to go to the park to work in your wood shop and to enjoy your life without being afraid of your own legs. It starts with one meal. It starts with choosing the sweet potato instead of the fries or the eggs instead of the sugary donut. I've made it my mission to help other seniors realize that we don't have to just accept getting weaker. We can fight back. I've seen the change in my own body, and I've felt the relief of knowing I can still trust my legs to carry me. It's a powerful thing to feel strong again. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but if you start today, you might be surprised at how much better you feel in just a few weeks. You'll notice the stairs don't look quite so daunting. You'll notice you don't need to hold onto the table when you stand up, and that confidence is going to change your whole outlook on the future. Now, I want to leave you with a little challenge. Pick just one of the foods I talked about today. Maybe it's the oats or the eggs, and make it a part of your daily routine for the next 7 days. Don't worry about the rest yet. Just focus on that one change. Pay attention to how your legs feel when you first get out of bed in the morning. Notice if that stiffness is just a little bit less than it was the week before. I think you're going to be surprised at how quickly your body says thank you. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, sitting here on this porch in Knoxville, and I'm going to keep looking for ways to stay strong. I've got too much living left to do to let weak legs stop me. I hope you'll join me on this path. We've worked hard our whole lives, and we deserve to enjoy these years with our strength intact. Thank you for letting me share a bit of my story with you. It means a lot to me to know there are other folks out there who care about staying independent just as much as I do. Keep moving, keep eating right, and don't let anyone tell you that you're too old to be strong. I'll be right here, and I'll see you soon.